All right, we are live. Hopefully, the audio is coming through. Yet again, more technical issues tonight with this setup. I want to have guests on. I want to get back to like the normal flow of things, but I still continue to have issues that make me scared of having guests because I want this to be like a well-oiled machine. So then when I'm bringing guests on and I have a bunch of other things to consider, it's like we have so many different things to talk about tonight. Unfortunately, you're not going to get a YouTube video from me this week. I've been researching and kind of catching up on some other videos and stuff, but like, you know, I don't have anything finished ready to go live on the channel. Unfortunately, I've had so at work during the day job, I had a big project this week go live, kind of internal to the company, that we've been working on for like a year now, and so that felt really good. But that also took a lot of time. Although it's gone well, like it hasn't taken as much time as it could have if it went poorly. And then we had some kids being sick today, which threw a wrench in things, and then also my wife and I have been in the market for a new car for her, and we found a used one that met kind of the specs we were looking for of the type of Nissan Armada we were interested in. So we went and traded in her car and got that last weekend. And then that led to something else where it's like we might actually be trading in my car and getting a new car, a new used car for me this weekend. We'll see. Yeah, so that presented a bunch of other little, lots of admin work and stuff like that, and just kind of getting caught up on the usual kind of admin work this time of year, you know, like taxes, finances, stuff like that. So all super exciting. But you know what is super exciting beyond a lot of the news and other things we have to talk about tonight is we are getting close. Let's see how this live view works here. Oops, hold on. Give me a minute. All right. More technical difficulties. Okay, hold on just a minute. Still so hard to resize it. Tahoe's resizing window thing really is bad. People complain about it, but it's like it really is hard to resize windows in macOS Tahoe. I don't know why. Okay. There we go. So we are about to hit 75,000 subscribers here on the channel. So we're just 19 away from 75. So yeah, go subscribe if you haven't already. Would love to have you as part of the channel. And thanks to you who have subscribed. So let's see. Let me say hi to some folks in the chat, and then we'll get back to a lot of the news and things going on this week. It's like for a random week in February, there sure is a lot happening. Lone Star Trent, nice to see you here. Buddy from Texas, William, good evening. Yes, having a great Thursday, and thanks for watching this instead of the Olympic ceremony, opening ceremonies. I think that's tonight. Super Bowl weekend, yes. I don't know who I'm rooting for. Probably the Seahawks. I was sad to see the Bears lose in the divisional round, but yeah. Anyways, that was quite the end of the game. That game, I don't know if you haven't seen it. There was an amazing end to the regular period of the game that led to overtime. Really cool play. But Bears had a great run this year. Maybe next year, we'll see. Good evening, George. Great to have you here. Thanks for tuning in. Good. My audio sounds great. Thank you, William. Okay. I was still on my Safari real-time subscriber count. Um, yeah, I need to fix some stuff with the audio in the studio. By the way, another thing that I did with the studio or the like my office space that I'm renting, I set up my point-to-point VPN with Unify. So I'm like trying out all that stuff. I'm gonna get my because I have a UNAS, and then Ubiquiti sent me a UNAS 2 that I did a review on last year. So I'm gonna like do the whole thing where it's like the UNAS at home backs up to the UNAS 2 in the office, and like try out that whole thing. Speaking of Unify, another life update today. I checked the stock on the Unify travel router, and I happened to check at a time when it was in stock, and I ordered one. Actually, no, it wasn't today. It was yesterday. So I will be getting a Unify travel router. So that's really exciting. That is this Ubiquiti's new little travel things, like the size of a deck of cards. And it helps you connect back to your home network, as well as just giving your devices Wi-Fi that they know and love when you're away from home. We'll see how it actually performs. I've heard good things from other people. Yes, never-ending thing, always technical problems. Speaking of technical problems, we got to talk about all the IKEA drama this week. There's been a lot of discussion around how reliable or not IKEA is with their Matter over Thread devices. Hello from Virginia, Juan. Great to have you here. Yeah, hopefully you're all good with the snow these days. I'm sorry, I don't know the context of the Lady Hawks, but maybe the Seahawks. No, I don't know. Sorry. Yes, take time off while you're saying it's Super Bowl weekend. Although it's kind of ironic because it's like I've already taken the time off, so to speak. Like, I need to be getting stuff to get ready to publish for you next week, kind of like in advance of things. So I will take time off to watch the Super Bowl. My oldest son has gotten really into watching football this season, which has been fun to watch games or recaps of games with him. So he'll get to watch until halftime, and that'll be fun. Because in previous years, my kids have watched some of the Super Bowl, but they didn't really understand what was going on as much as I think they will this year. So that'll be fun. Hello from Texas, Dan. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Hello from Arkansas. Got folks from all over the place. John from Texas. Yeah, did anybody get the U400 Pro kit from Apple? I did not. But it looked cool, and metal finish and 2 batteries. I saw it at CES. It looked really nice. And we have some more Apple new or sort of stuff Tim Cook said / rumors to talk about later too. Thank you, Water Bottle 365. Great to see you here. Yeah, no worries. It's why, so with my busy life this week, I can't do a Friday afternoon stream. And so I'm doing the Thursday night stream. It's fun because, this time there's some people who can tune in who can't tune in on a Friday afternoon, and vice versa. So I'm not going to completely abandon this Thursday night time because I know it works for some people. Oh, my goodness. Speaking of being up late, Raul Rewired from Zurich, Switzerland. Well, thanks for tuning in. It's got to be pretty early or pretty late there. Hello from Nebraska, Dylan Bott. Thanks for tuning in. All right. So, in Winnipeg. Wow. Yeah, I'd love to hear in the chat what people are going to be watching the Super Bowl on. It's I'll probably be watching it on actually so you've probably seen some of our family friends who have the nothing projector screen that rises up from the ground, and currently the Hisense, I forget the model number, ultra short throw projector, but that's probably where we'll go for the Super Bowl this year. But if you go to my website, let's pull this up. And hopefully this works. All right. So on my smart home deals, I posted a quick article earlier today about Sonos's Super Bowl sale. Now, this is not brand new today. This was something I think they came out with last week, but it's going through the 16th. And I just wanted to mention it here. Speaking of what to watch the Super Bowl or really any other game, we got the Olympics coming up, which is a whole other, excuse to watch live sports on TV. So the Era 300 isn't really as much something for, and let me pull up Sonos's website too. So we can see that. And this kind of has some better visuals. I just put mostly text in my article. But the Era 300 is a really nice speaker. Now, you can use them, a pair of them, as rears in a home theater setup for really nice Dolby Atmos configuration. And that's a nice setup. However, I also think they're really good as just a speaker in a room. We have one in our dining room. They fill the room very well with sound. And they have spatial audio. So if you have Apple Music, you can have spatial Apple Music streaming from this. And I know that sounds like a gimmick. When you're in a small enough room, it really does sound good. I did, I covered this speaker as well as the Era 100 back when they launched in 2024. It's great. So it's $100 off, which is kind of one of those, I think, that brings it down to like a different price category. Being $480 down to $380 is a good discount. So I just wanted to call that one out. There's some other discounts that I go into in my article over here, kind of detailing. Unfortunately, the Era 100, which is one of my favorites, had a really good sale on Black Friday last year. If I remember, it's only $20 off. The other cool thing about the Era 100 that I want to see is back at CEDIA. I remember seeing coverage of CEDIA. I didn't go to CEDIA. I was at IFA, and also I'm not a pro installer, so I don't think I could go to CEDIA. Maybe I could, but someone who I saw covering CEDIA talked about showed a Era 100 running with power over Ethernet, and I think that would be really cool. So then you wouldn't need to run power cable and Ethernet or just power cable and Wi-Fi to a Sonos Era 100. You could just run the Ethernet cable. So we'll see if that comes out. Sonos also had this new sort of like multi-zone rack-mounted thing that I don't really think it really applies too much to what I talk about on this channel, but they came out with that recently. So it's nice to see Sonos kind of moving forward with new products and stuff. I still really like their stuff. I know they've been kind of controversial in recent years, but yeah, and if looking at my stats of videos and stuff, people still are interested in Sonos content, right? They're watching videos on Sonos stuff. So it's not contrary to the media narrative. It's not like Sonos has fallen out of favor in the big picture of things. All right. So let's see what the chat has to say about that. Anything? All right, Danny from Australia. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you here. All right, so Lone Star Trent has the 83-inch Q4 or C4, the LG C4, not Q4, the LG C4 OLED. That sounds really nice. Quite a nice picture there. My screen will be, I think, 120 inches. So let's see. So, all right. Yes. Okay, good. It logged me in as a member. So Jennifer Patterson Tui posted an article yesterday about a lot of connectivity issues she's been having with the new IKEA devices. Now, I need to do some more testing of the other devices other than the button. I just haven't had a chance yet. Quick follow-up really quick. George is saying in the chat, Sonos made a quick comeback for me, back to using their stuff, and it's been flawless. Great, because I know you were kind of all HomePod and some other stuff for a while, George, so good to hear you're liking Sonos again. Um, but Jen over at The Verge has been having some issues with the IKEA stuff, and she has a great article here going into a lot of the details, talking to some good sources, and IKEA did acknowledge there are issues with their Matter over Thread devices. And I think the real takeaway from the like Apple perspective here, and like, so here's my 2 cents on I think what's going on here. Now I don't know, and I haven't like messaged Jen or anything about this, but I think one of the things that makes a real difference in your Thread network is if Matter over Thread network, especially, is if your primary Matter controller can go straight from Thread to Ethernet. Because I'm guessing that something about the latency between Thread and then through a border router over to Wi-Fi and back is somehow difficult for it to map and figure out. Because I haven't had nearly as many of these issues with Thread specifically. I've had these IKEA buttons responding really well, and plenty of other Matter over Thread devices working well. But of course, not every Matter over Thread device has worked well for me across all companies, right? And I'm not talking about specifically IKEA here. But as the article mentioned, there's a lot of different configurations that IKEA has to solve for here. And we'll see. I just hope this isn't a giant black eye for other companies looking at getting into Matter over Thread. It's I think it's a really cool technology. I really hope that more companies continue to make Matter over Thread devices. And yeah, I hope IKEA is able to figure it out and kind of address a lot of these customer issues. We'll see. But I did just want to mention it and love to hear in the chat if you guys have any of these new IKEA devices. Have you had good experiences, bad experiences with them? I mean, I use one right here that, since my video, I still use to run my studio setup. I can turn on my filming scene, all my lights turn on, and that's really nice. So for me, the IKEA buttons have been working well, but it doesn't sound quite like it's that way for everybody for a lot of the IKEA products. So just a word of warning out there. Although the beauty of it is too, they're not that expensive, and I would bet, if you're able to get back to IKEA, which I know is a whole thing, right? But if you're able to get back to an IKEA, it's not that hard to return stuff at IKEA, even if you've opened it. So you'd probably be okay returning it and getting your money back. So of course, if you're mail ordering it, that's a whole other thing. I don't know. I've not returned anything via mail order from IKEA, but hopefully it works out for people. And if not, they're not out too much money from that. So yes, Juan will be watching the Puppy Bowl, which is always fun to watch. Cool. Working and broadcasting the Puppy Bowl. That's cool. Yeah. So, and then I watch, by the way, the Apple has that new Vision Pro dog show behind the scenes thing. I thought it was really cool. I didn't watch a lot of it. I just watched a little bit of it. And I just was like thinking that it's not really something that really needs to be on Vision Pro or makes so much of a difference on Vision Pro, or Apple Vision Pro. So many of the things that they're doing with immersive content, it really makes a difference. And you're like, wow, that's so cool. The dog show one just felt like this was a documentary that could have easily been shot for just a 16:9 format Netflix documentary. There was a little bit of it where it does feel like you're more closer to the dogs, and but at the same time, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like the dog shows or like dogs like that just don't feel quite as exotic as an elephant or some, a CG version of a dinosaur or a basketball game where you're sitting courtside or stuff like that. So I don't know. It's cool. I'm glad Apple's doing more content, but wasn't too into it myself. So Themelius, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, bought a couple of those buttons and new temperature humidity sensors, and they work just fine. That's great to hear. Hook them up to Apple Home directly. Nice. Yeah, and I also think I don't know. I haven't tried a lot of I haven't tried much of any Matter over Thread configurations outside of Apple Home myself. That tends to be where I put my Matter over Thread devices. Um, and because if I use another system, it's going to be for stuff that's usually not Matter over Thread. But I think Apple has done a pretty good job with their Thread implementation at this point. I know it was rocky there for a while, but I think that's something that might be helping us Apple users use some of these IKEA products that I know Jen was using Amazon and some other things, and maybe there's issues there. So yeah, you can always Ratchet Gang, good to see you here. You could always flip it on eBay. Although, man, all the time to take those pictures and do the listing and stuff for a $7 thing, I don't know. So Ricardo Branch finally got the Aqara FP300. Cool. Yeah, it's that's a really cool sensor. Millimeter wave. I'm actually playing with some stuff right now. I think I talked about it in one of my videos last year, but I have this coming soon. Some automations with the FP2. I had to put one of my FP2s back here. But the FP300 is really, really cool sensor. And nice to not have to then deal with those wires. All right. So I thought this was interesting. I don't know if people would be into this, but we'll see. There was one article that I saw that had a very annoying viral headline of this, of like, CarPlay coming to an unexpected device you won't believe. It's a Sea-Doo jet ski. This was not that article with that headline, but I don't know. Like, I've been on a jet ski before. I do not own a jet ski myself, but I think it's a clever idea to put CarPlay on a jet ski, just because then you have controls from your phone. I don't think you would really use the navigation per se, but cool idea. So I'd love to see this in person. I don't think I ever will, but anyways, if you're into jet skis and own one or thinking of getting a new one or something, just that could be a cool thing to check out. Of course, given what I've been doing now, my wife's new car has wireless CarPlay. Of course, my Accord, which overall my Accord has been a great car, but it makes my kids car sick so much all the time. They can barely ride in it. So that's why we're looking at changing up cars, because for myself, because it's hard for me to drive the kids places when then they're just going to arrive there feeling really car sick. So some stuff that is not all that great as far as news, but I did just want to call this out here, is, speaking of Apple Home, the HomePod, our good old friend, is getting older by the day. The HomePod is now over 3 years old, which, can you believe it? That the HomePod is now, man, it's 2024. Right? Was it 20? No. Yeah, yes, because the HomePod 2 is now over 3 years old. It launched in 2023. Yes, 2023. I'm like, the math doesn't work for 24. Yes. So the HomePod 2 launched on February 3rd, 2023. And so it's now over 3 years old. I still think the HomePod 2 is a good product. I don't think Apple's going to update the HomePod 2 this year. I think they might update other products, but I don't think they're going to update the HomePod 2. We'll see. But that is kind of surprising to me. Speaking of voice assistants, one other thing I just want to mention here of something I've been using and overall enjoying a decent amount, although not really as much from the smart home side of it, is Alexius Plus, Amazon's assistant. It is now coming to basically anybody who signs up for Amazon's service with a compatible device will get this new Plus service. And there's also a free tier of it. So previously you'd have to pay for just Alexius Plus, or you could get it through Prime, of course, which I think most people would if they are paying for it. My kids love talking to this thing, and it's I think it's introduced the rest of my family to talking to an AI chatbot to get answers to things. The rest of my family isn't as tech savvy, and so they're not really using as much things like a ChatGPT or a Claude or any of these other chatbots or Gemini that you can talk to in text form on a computer or a phone. And this is something that just puts it conversational and is so natural, and it is really a really cool way to have AI just in your kitchen to answer questions or do all kinds of just random really answers is really the main thing for us. I mean, I'm sure you could integrate it with other stuff and get it to do more, but just not really something we use for smart home control too much or anything else. But having that LLM kind of power, of course, it hallucinate, LLMs hallucinate. They're not perfect, right? But it's still very, very handy. And the other thing that's nice too is that our kids who are younger can ask it the same question repeatedly, or basically ask it the same question 3 different ways. And then it will politely respond with the same answer. And it's great. It's like, thank goodness it's here and I don't have to answer the same question 3 times. So that's always funny. I mean, I love my kids and I'll answer other questions 3 times for sure, but it's nice sometimes to have a little bit of help there. So another kind of AI thing that I talked about I was playing with last week is Claudebot, and which then became Moltbot, which then became OpenClaw. I stopped playing with it because I just think the security concerns are too high. I actually went back to I'm doing other stuff with my Mac Mini. I was actually going to live stream from my Mac Mini tonight, but there's still issues I've been having with trying to get it so that 2 different computers, 2 different Macs with Ecamm can all simultaneously be able to, if I wanted to, stream to YouTube. I haven't spent enough time researching it, but that's like a problem that I've been having where it's like I open Ecamm on my Mac Mini and it doesn't know. It doesn't know about the stream. I can't stream to it. And so that tonight I was like, and so now I'm on my laptop. But yeah, well, I'll figure that out one of these days when I have some time. But OpenClaw, I think it's a cool idea. I think it's really a sign of the power that Apple and Google have with AI on their own platforms, right? So like with Apple being able to, like one of the things I was playing with and it didn't, like it did a pretty good job of this, but it's like, I wanted to set up a thing where it's like, it was able to see not even really the details of my events, but just like when I was free and busy and be able to look at that and be like, all right, I know that Eric wants to schedule things for time blocks of when to do stuff during these times. Here's when, I can look at the free busy time on his calendar based on these parameters. And then I can say like, find some time for me to do this thing. Right. And it can go find, next week, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And then it can go look at my calendar and find an open time block and stick an event there. And that kind of stuff is cool. And yeah, you could probably do some of that with MCP where it's like logged into your Google account and looking at all your stuff. If you happen to have all your calendars in one Google Calendar, which a lot of people don't. And so I think this whole thing where it's like it can reference and look at all the data that's on your Mac or on your phone, that's really powerful. And I think there's a lot of ways that it's going to unlock AI to be used for a lot of people where it's sort of, it's taking a little bit of context about the stuff on your machine and then using that to then make conclusions and work with stuff in a way where it's not like, well, AI is really powerful if you have everything in the same Gmail account, this or the same whatever accounts in the same calendar, right? It's going to be it's going to be just, I was just reading the chat, catching up on that really quick. But I think that whole new era is going to be really powerful. And there's, I could pull the exact quote. Maybe I will. But Tim Cook had an interview earlier this week. Maybe it was today. And Bloomberg had an article about it. Mark Gurman had an article in Bloomberg, and he pulled a quote about how Tim Cook was talking about how much AI is going to be something that's in some new products from Apple. And I think what he was talking about, what it sounded like Tim Cook was talking about, is the Apple HomePod with the screen, basically, whenever that comes. And I'm really excited about that. And I think there will be a lot of practical smart home applications for it. But I think we should all be ready from the smart home side of things that this isn't probably going to be a 100% smart home device, right? It's going to be an assistant in your home that uses Apple Intelligence, probably powered by Gemini to a certain extent, or like using Google's foundational models, right? The whole rumored 2020 or iOS 26.4 release. I think it's going to use a lot of that. And, I'm excited to see what Apple does in that category, but I think it's going to be just as much an AI assistant as it is some kind of a smart home control. And maybe some other, features Apple adds on, of digital photo frame for your home. I think Apple could do such a good job with that part of it. Or maybe even the Snoopy screensavers or other fun stuff there. And maybe they give it some kind of anamorphic qualities with a face that responds to things. I don't know. But I'm sure whatever it is, it'll be clever, and I can't wait to see it. But I just want to mention that based on these comments and based on my experience with Clawbot this week, and last week's more, and just OpenClaw and playing with that. It's a cool concept, and I think it highlights a lot of the possibilities. But I just don't think. I think it's really the kind of thing that's going to be way more powerful once these platforms, like Google's already gotten a lot there, I think, with some of the stuff, the demos that I've seen. I don't know how much of those demos have actually shipped on Android and Chrome, but I think when Apple gets a lot of these AI things integrated that they initially kind of showed the concepts of at WWDC 24, I think that's going to be really powerful. So, all right. Yes, better cooking tips. Yeah, so I'm just holding out for the next HomePod, yes, or HomePod Mini 2 at the least. Hopefully the Thread network. Yes. I can't remember. Does Apple support the latest version of Thread yet? I haven't looked at that, but I agree. And I think too, just getting some faster Wi-Fi chips and some smart home devices. I find when I put HomePod minis further out in my Wi-Fi network where my signal is not as good, then it's just not as fast. And I can put a HomePod, like a full, or HomePod 2, right? A full-size HomePod 2 in the same place. It has a slightly better Wi-Fi connection, slightly newer chip, and that seems to work better. So if we can finally get more Apple home devices with Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7, that would be pretty cool. So that's something else I'm excited about. And I also kind of was wondering too, now this is just getting into conjecture land, but no evidence on this. But so Apple owns Beats. And of course, Beats is a brand they acquired, but they've kind of let Beats be its own sub brand, right? And I know some of the stuff like there's rumors that, let's say, Apple would, in the past and in the future, go to companies like Belkin or Logitech and partner closely and basically make some things that don't have the Apple brand on it, but it's Apple's doing a lot of stuff for it, um, like the HomeKit doorbells, right? But at the same time, I'm wondering if there's sort of those rumors around Apple making a doorbell camera or some other smart home tech. I could see a world where some of the smart home products Apple does, maybe not their HomePod line or Apple TV or whatever they brand, the new categories there. But if they get into actual accessories like cameras or other things, that those would be under a separate brand. And so a lot of us and other people would know, oh, that's Apple's smart home brand, but it would just kind of be sold as a separate brand, maybe market itself a little bit differently, work, with in different ways that you wouldn't see, you wouldn't be as traditional for Apple to do. So we'll see. It's just some of my thoughts there about what about this whole new home category. So. Waterwell 365. Speaking of Wi-Fi chips, if you ever have roaming issues with iPhone 17 Pro Max on Unify, everything else in my network is great, but roaming between access points, my iPhone is laggy. I did, and then there was a setting. Well, so I use an iPhone Air, not a Pro Max, but I know it's still the Apple's N1. Well, actually, wait. I don't think the Pro Max has Apple's N1 chip. I have Apple's N1 chip in the Air. But there were some settings I had to change on my Ubiquiti network, and I cannot remember what they are, but there were some things. And that was also one of the things that I finally last year, I think I talked about it on a live stream. For a while there, I was like, team, it's too complicated to have two networks. Just don't do a second smart home network, right? But I finally split off my network last year at one point. And so now I have a separate smart home network, and my non-smart home network has a lot more of the stuff turned on for band steering and for other things that just kind of make it easier for newer devices to hop between networks and do kind of the more of the multiple frequency stuff, fast switching between frequencies, all those standards. So maybe there's something there going on with smart home stuff on the same network, so to speak. But I have not seen too many issues. Occasionally I'll get like 2 bars of Wi-Fi, but other than that, it's been completely fine. And no, the HomePod 2 does not have an Ethernet port. Sonos does have Ethernet ports via adapters for the new speakers and Ethernet on a lot of their older ones. But yeah, Apple does not have Ethernet ports on their HomePods. That's, by the way, what I was talking about earlier and that's the key thing to take note of with the IKEA thread reliability. We were talking about at the beginning of the stream. So I have my primary Matter controller, my main Apple Home Hub is the latest generation Apple TV, the high-end version with an Ethernet jack on the back. And then I can plug it into my network. And so then it has a thread radio and Wi-Fi and everything, and it goes straight into Ethernet. And so that's the only Apple Home Hub you can buy today that does that. The previous gen Apple TV, there were some options there too, but the latest generation Apple TV, you have to get the high-end version, but that's your ticket to an Ethernet wired Matter controller for Apple Home. And that's, I think, the best way to run your smart home these days if you're using Apple Home. Oh yeah, that's a good other point. There's some things on like limit Wi-Fi tracking and some other stuff that are in your settings for that Wi-Fi network that you might need to turn off. I find I need to turn that off more commonly at hotels or other public Wi-Fi or more semi-public Wi-Fi networks that then for some reason don't support some of Apple's privacy features. I think Apple's privacy features are great, but of course if they don't work, then that's a problem. So yeah. I wish also with some of that stuff that, so there used to be a time, right, when I remember back in the day when you used to have to do more turning off your Wi-Fi because your Wi-Fi, you'd be like far enough away from your home that your Wi-Fi would still maybe connect, but it wouldn't really work well. But your phone was still trying to do that over cellular instead of cellular. And now there's all this multi-route TCP stuff. So like behind the scenes, you know, there's all kinds of times I think when your iPhone uses a little bit of cellular data for something that's just like whatever, your Wi-Fi connection isn't reliable or is congested or whatever else. And so it just uses that and you don't even notice. And of course, if you have a limit on your data plan, there are ways you can turn that off in settings. But I would love to see this whole MAC address tracking and other stuff that Apple has for privacy be the same way, where it's like Apple's making you as private as you can be, but it's also somehow intelligently able to realize, oh, wait, the traffic isn't actually getting through. I'm still getting that captive page here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off MAC address tracking and just let them track my MAC address. And then look, the network works and you don't have to mess with those settings yourself. But I don't know. That's getting very kind of nerdy in the details there on stuff that also is not super my area of expertise. So yeah, we'll see. Just calling this out one last time. Speaking of Apple Home, had a lot of really like Apple and home topics tonight. You better update to the new home architecture if you haven't already. It is coming. You will lose support. So beware. Apple's given the final warning to users. So you do need to upgrade. Wow, so many ads on this page. The new home architecture came out. I want to say, man, there was a part where it came out and then was pulled back and then came out again. But it's been out since 2023, I think was when it relaunched. And that's when I moved to it. And it's been great ever since. Totally a good idea and would recommend. So do that if you haven't already. Because otherwise your Apple Home might really stop working with the old architecture. Excuse me. All right. So we were talking about IKEA issues earlier, and well, I haven't had any issues with my Matter over Thread devices from IKEA. I did want to mention that's like my Dirigera hub, which I installed last year in my home and then put in my smart home at night video and some other videos. That has just gone totally crazy over the past, I want to say, couple weeks now. And it like just doesn't, it shows up in Apple Home, but none of the stuff is responsive. And then I'll like get it fixed and then it'll like happen again. And so I'm almost to the point where I'm just going to like keep IKEA stuff out of Apple Home and then just use like a smart plug to control the same lamp. And because I really just have these 3 lamps that I use in my kids' rooms for like, they can turn on really dim and they're like a kind of a flexible reading light. I talk about the specific model in detail in my smart home at night video for that. But that is just been kind of like a real annoying IKEA thing. And so right now, the way we're living is that every night when it's time for kids' bed, I plug in these lights and then in the morning, myself or someone in our home, usually my wife, will unplug them. So not ideal. They need to be smart again, but I just haven't figured out what I want to do to actually fix that, right? There's a bunch of different ways I could fix it, but it's just a matter of what. And I just wanted to mention that because I always like to keep you guys updated on like when I'm actually having problems or success with products. Um, Another thing, by the way, back to the AI stuff we were talking about earlier. I haven't played with it myself, but I do think it's cool. Apple just came out with a bunch of agentic coding things with Xcode in the 26.3 release candidate for Xcode. So I'm excited to look into that. But that's not really something I talk about too much on my stream, even though I do app development stuff outside of YouTube. Yeah, so I'm excited to play with that. I think it's cool that Apple's doing that. So back to, let's see, smart home stuff. We talked about the Sonos sale. You can go check that out over on my website if I break down that already. I know some of you guys don't always join right at the beginning, so just kind of quick review of some of that stuff. Right. If you have a question, go ahead and prefix it with the question prefix down in the chat. Love to hear any questions you might have. Yes, William, great point. Stephen Robles does have a lot of really good videos on not only just practical ways to use shortcuts, right, and a lot of other Apple products, but also practical ways to use AI. He did one on AI browsers, or he's done, I think, multiple things on AI browsers over the time. One of the things that really opened my mind up to like a cool thing you can do with AI on your phone or whatever other Apple device is using the Apple Intelligence actions and shortcuts. And he had some really cool use cases where you can let me see if I can pull up my example I sort of built inspired by his video. Let's see, where is it? Is this it? Yes. So this really only worked with the ChatGPT one, and it kind of struggled with bigger PDFs, but this will kind of give you an idea of where I was going. Let me make sure I can pull this up for you. Give me a second here. But I mean, he was doing all kinds of stuff around recipes and turning photos into recipes. So let's see. All right. So this is my PDF to note shortcut that I built before CES, which basically just takes a PDF from the share sheet and then gives it. Now this is the ChatGPT one is really only one that worked. On device, it was a little bit much for the on device model to go through a PDF and summarize it. But the following is a PDF document summarizes contents and key bullet points on a new product announcement. Do not include any introduction or commentary. Blah blah blah. Just a prompt, and then it sends that response to ChatGPT, and then creates a note in Apple Notes. In this case, with the shortcut input, and then also can add. So the way I did this too was I had trouble getting, and there's probably a better way I could do this, but I just copied the summary to my clipboard and then created the note with the PDF. So then I just have to paste the summary into the note rather than having to deal with, oh, can I get the note with the attachment and the text in there? There might be a way to do that I haven't figured out, but I was having trouble getting the attachment. But yeah, just cool ideas where you can use. This is Apple's action, right? And you can choose private cloud compute. I was having trouble with that as well. Working well with this PDF summary. It was really only ChatGPT in my use case, but there's some other cool use cases that that ChatGPT is using. Hopefully, you can see that okay on the screen. And yes, no, Google wasn't really at CES. That was another question about that. Um, good point, Lone Star Trent. I know there was a question there earlier. All right, so let me go back to camera. Go. Okay. So, speaking of shortcuts, if you haven't seen my last video that I did last week, that has a bunch of shortcut details, especially at the end. I think if you're more an advanced smart home user, you might have seen the beginning and thought, "Oh, I know that. I know this video, right? I have time automations in my home, no problem." But the end of that video does have some things around, like using the automations that you can get with your smart home around the weather reports that you can pull inside of shortcuts. And like I was using things like the visibility of the weather in that shortcut, and that can be nice. Play into lighting of like, right, you might want different lighting on a cloudy day than or a rainy, any kind of day where the visibility is lower compared to when it's a sunny day. And so there's stuff like that that you can do in Apple's shortcuts automation on your device. Again, not AI, just like basic if else logic. And something cool to think about. But yes, highly recommend, as William was saying, Stephen Robles' channel for some of those AI examples. He's going to have way better shortcut examples with Apple Intelligence than I do. That was just practical example of something that kind of worked for me as I was going through. Because, of course, with CES as a creator, you get dumped with tons and tons of these press releases and press kits and all this stuff for all the different companies I want to cover. And it's fun and it's exciting, but it's a lot of information to go through. And that's where kind of getting those into Apple Notes with a quick AI summary at the top was kind of nice. So, yeah, good question, Ratchet Gang. We're hopefully out of the coldest part of the weather. There is one thing that has been giving me issues in the cold weather, and I'm sure it will come at no surprise to regular viewers, maybe including yourself, Ratchet Gang. And that's my Logitech Circle View doorbell. So I actually had put my Logitech Circle View doorbell back on put one on my front door just to kind of retest it. I mean, Apple continues to sell it. I'm just like, what's the current state of how this thing works? It's fine, but there are some nice, the video quality when it works, when it's online. The video quality is really nice. You get this beautiful vertical image that has great night vision. It looks great and it's so well integrated in Apple stuff, but it has too many times that I feel like it should have picked something up either that I know for a fact or I'm like, I think there was something during that time and it didn't show it or didn't record it, right? There's a lot of that and a lot of times where it goes offline and it comes back online. And it goes offline. And it's really the same problems that I had with it previously. It wasn't like any kind of new things with Apple Home had fixed problems with it or whatever that I'd missed. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, thankfully, Aqara has our back with good Apple Home doorbells if you want Apple Home and a doorbell. But yeah, not something that Aqara or now Belkin can really give you. So, or sorry, not something Logitech or Belkin can give you, but Aqara can. Yeah, there you go. There's Ratchet King has some good ideas or I don't know if I'd say good, but funny ideas for what to do when when Siri goes gets some new intelligent features. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like Logitech makes such great mice and other stuff, but their cameras for smart home tech, like they're not very good. And there was that whole drama around the new CEO of Logitech getting interviewed by Nilay Patel at The Verge on his Decoder podcast. This was, I think it was it 2025? Maybe it was 24, 25. And she barely knew that they had smart home products. Now, granted, she had only been CEO for like a month, but still, it was not a good sign for their smart home division. And they still continue to make those products, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like Belkin, Logitech has some plan in 26 or 27 to exit that market. I certainly wouldn't expect a new Circle View doorbell. I mean, I'd be happy to check it out and try it, and hopefully, if it actually does, if there is something there. But yeah. Other than that, though, other than that, all my stuff is pretty much has held up. Yeah. U400 worked great in the cold, installed great in the cold. All my Ubiquiti Unify cameras, Unify Protect cameras worked fine in the cold weather. No issues there. So my Apple Watch is reminding me that it's time for bed soon. All right. Let's see if we have any more questions here in the chat, and we'll kind of close out tonight's stream. I've also been I've been 3D printing a lot. One thing, by the way, let me show you this before. So as I run out of filament with a particular 3D printed thing, or like a spool of filament, as I run low on that, what I do is I print these cable clips, and they're a print in place design that like the hinge prints in place, and then you really just like snap it, and then it will then start to bend, and then you can clip them together like this. And so this is what things look like. You can also use the smaller ones if you have like a big spool. And I'll link this design in maybe I'll put it in my newsletter on Sunday, and then I'll also put it in the description of this live stream after this, so you can go check out the same kind of design on Maker World that I found for this. But these are really good, and a really, really good way to just manage your cables, and so easy to clip and unclip, and just a nice little thing. If you have a 3D printer, especially a Bamboo Lab one, because I think this is it's on Maker World, and there's probably a way to get it to work on a lot of 3D printers. But yeah, I mean, as you can see, I printed them. This one I ran out of filament and then filled it with another filament. These are, some other kind of PETG translucent filament. So there's just different ones that I've used over time, but they can be really nice for just organizing cables. And then like I have bins or drawers with cables in them, and yeah, works out. Nice way to store cables. So I know if you've seen a lot of my videos, you probably wouldn't expect me to be the one telling you about cable management stuff, because I'm not usually very diligent about keeping my cables neat and tidy. But in this case, I've actually found a lot of use out of these things, and they make it easy enough that you don't have to sweat the details too much. So. Yeah. Some other good comments on just companies here in the chat. Are Spriggy, I'm guessing is how I say your name, still upset with the Logitech discontinuing the Harmony Remote. I agree. The Harmony Remote was so good, and I was also kind of bummed. So SwitchBot sent me their remote when it came out, and I messaged them, and I think they really missed an opportunity to make their remote, the SwitchBot remote, more like a new version of the Logitech Harmony remote. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And that was a really good setup. And I loved some of the like just the workflows there, right? Where it's like you hit the button in the touchscreen and then it would like know to turn on this and turn on this. And but the problem is I think so many people's TV setups these days are really just a smart TV and that's it. And so I think the market for those has really shrunk. I'd imagine. I'm not a, expert in that. I haven't seen hard numbers on that, but yeah. Bummer to see the Harmony remotes go away as well. Um, and yeah, Linksys is so Foxconn, I think it is. They acquired the Belkin brand and the Linksys brand for making tech. Foxconn is a big manufacturer from China. They make a lot of the iPhones and other tech, Um, and I think it was they bought Linksys, but yeah, you don't see as much from Linksys anymore. Um, and yes, Mike brings up a good point for doorbells. Don't forget to make sure your transformer puts out enough voltage. Older homes might not have a powerful enough transformer for your doorbell. Um, the other thing to keep in mind there too is it is possible to upgrade your doorbell transformer. You need to find where it is in the home. Um, there was a brand who I did a worked with on a doorbell video a number of years ago now, and they needed like before they sent me their doorbell, they wanted me to make sure that my transformer was up to the specs that they were looking for, right? So I mean, they didn't want to send me a doorbell that and try and do this video that like if my front door couldn't support it. But in doing that, I kind of learned more about doorbell transformers and I would probably, at least for myself, even though I changed out smart switches and even with three-way and four-way circuits, I would probably hire someone to change my doorbell transformer just to make sure like can the circuit that it's on actually handle that and like install it properly and everything. But assuming that it is possible to upgrade your doorbell transformer if you have the power on that circuit to handle it. Um, and from there, though, the other thing to consider if you have an older home and you do have a not powerful enough transformer, some of Akara's like the G410 doorbell, those can run off of AA batteries, rechargeable or not rechargeable. So that's something to consider as well. Is that you finally have that option. Of course, the G4 doorbell, that also has battery powered option. It's not quite as good a video quality. I would go with the G410 at this point, but um, something to keep in mind there. Yeah, and speaking of Akara, they showed us their PoE doorbell, which is also going to be. I think it'll also work with the standard doorbell transformer. They had a model there at CES with that as well. So if you do have power on your front door to power a smart doorbell, and you want to get something that works with Apple Home, I'm really excited for the new Akara doorbell. I'm not exactly sure, when it will launch this year, but Akara seems to be pretty close to bringing it to the market. We saw it first at IFA and then in more detail at CES. So, yeah, we'll see when that actually comes out sometime this year. But that looks like a nice one to wait for if you have the ability to run the power to the doorbell. So, all right. Let's see. I feel like there's something else there's always like I finish these streams and then I'm like, oh, I forgot to talk about this. Even though like I try and be pretty diligent about making all these notes of stuff I want to talk about, there's always still things that don't make the notes or don't make links or whatever, and I just completely forget what I was supposed or what I wanted to talk about. Um, but I think we've covered pretty much everything today. Yeah, if you have any questions in the chat, otherwise I think we'll start to wrap up. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Uh, Melis brings up, like you will need to do some detective work in your home to find out where is your doorbell transformer. It's probably not where you'd expect. Mine is magnetic or like connected to the like some metal stuff like around the light fixture in my laundry room in the basement, because that's, as far as like three-dimensionally, that's not far from where my doorbell is. But it did take me some kind of looking around the home to figure out, oh, that's where my doorbell transformer is. It's not by your it's usually, I don't think, by like, let's say, a chime box. If you have a chime box where the doorbell rings, that's usually not where the transformer is. So, and cool. And it's good to hear your you got the number pad working there too. All right. Oh yeah, so we talked about this earlier, Raul, about the I was just talking about the Apple Tim Cook interview where he was talking about how there's new products with AI coming. I bet that's the HomePod with the screen, and I think that was the whole conversation of, I think that will be more about AI than or not more, it'll be more about AI than you might think if you've been living in the smart home space for ages and thinking, oh, the HomePod with the screen, right? Because you think of a HomePod and you don't necessarily think of it as an AI device. I mean, it is to a certain extent, but like, um, I think that there's so much with things like Amazon's new assistant and Alexa Plus we talked about earlier that are much more than just a smart home control, and I think that's where a lot of those assistants are going. And so that's what I was just saying. This, like, I'm excited for this new device, but I just don't think that it might not even be the main selling point of the device is smart home control. And you could see a world where Apple wants this to be, in certain cases, maybe people's first smart home device. Maybe someone who lives in an apartment could buy plenty of smart home tech, but has decided to just ignore the whole category, right? Because it's, well, just put that expense off until I buy a home or whatever. But maybe then they see this Apple HomePod with the screen, they can buy that, and then that's like their sort of entry into smart home tech. Well, also because they buy it because they see the value of, like, hey, wouldn't it be nice to ask my assistant about my calendar for the day while I'm preparing my breakfast in the morning, and ask it to then tell so and so that something on messages really quick. And some of that stuff, of course, you can already do with the existing HomePods and assistants, but that visual component and some more smarts, I think, will be really a game changer there. So, oh, cool, Danny. Yeah, I didn't see that, but um, that's exciting. All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Great to have you guys here. Um, they didn't. Oh, you know what? They did. What was it? They did say the new name. Let me find what that was. Um, Did they say the new name? I could have sworn they did. Oh, speaking of, I mean, the multi-sensor P100 is another thing that I think like that's I'm just looking at a car's website for CES. That's going to be another thing, by the way, that like um I bet like I want to make a video of like 100 ways you can use this sensor that you never thought of, because I think it's going to be one of those like hidden gems in the smart home world of like a sensor where you can do a ton of stuff. So that's one, the multi-state sensor. I'm really excited about that. It does tilting, but in vibration and a bunch of other stuff. So I think if I understood it properly, they had a cool demo at the booth where it was on a hair. They had trouble getting it to work reliably, I think because it's an early test unit, but like you pick up a hair dryer, right? And then the hair dryer starts running because it knows that it's been picked up. And then you put it back in the dock, and then it knows it's back in the dock, and the hair dryer turns off. So I thought that was a cool idea. Yeah. Anyways, I'm going late, guys. It's been a good stream. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Stay tuned for my newsletter on Sunday and more videos from me next week. Thanks. Bye.